Thank you.
How we doing, guys?
So you obviously were with Will at Oregon last year. What about signing on to this project is appealing to you?
What about signing on to this project, coming with him? I mean, everything. Who he is, what he is as a person, as a coach. I've known Will for a long time, but kind of through other people, and we've bumped into each other here and there. And then getting to work with him and for him last year was really just put the nail in the coffin for me. Like, yeah, this was a conversation we'd had a number of times. And him being from here and obviously growing up a fan, it's really fun for me to kind of feed off his energy for the place too, and the history and the passion and it was a no-brainer.
I think Will said in his introductory press conference, or maybe the second time we talked to him, that special teams isn't just some third of the game. It's very important. You can be very aggressive, looking to change the game. Do you kind of have that same viewpoint? And what can we expect from you?
Absolutely. I think that really any play, any opportunity that you have to reflect who you are as a coaching staff, as a fan base, that should be. We got to take advantage of that. And I think that the thing I'm excited about is being a tough, blue-collar, hardworking, aggressive group, which is who we are as a staff, who we are as a team, and as I'm really learning who this fan base really is. And so, yes, I agree. I mean, there's going to be opportunities to I don't want to just say blind aggression, but I mean, yeah, it's when the way I teach a lot of things is we're just playing football. This is nothing. It's not some crazy. There'll be a couple techniques that won't show up in offense or defense or general football. When you're going to go try and block a punt, they don't do that anywhere else. Or, if they're going to try and down a punt inside the 10-yard line, things like that. So we got to really practice those skills. Most of everything else we do, it's about getting really good football players, an understanding of why they're out there and what they're doing, and letting them go do those jobs, and then just give them a little skill, a little context of how to best use their skills. But I mean, playing kickoff is playing safety on a blitz. I mean, it's kind of the same stuff, and that's kind of what I want to get those guys to understand. But yeah, I mean, we'll try to be multiple as we can. There's some rule changes we're kind of figuring out right now, and that'll probably impact a little bit of that, but we'll adapt, and we will.
You obviously signed an Australian punter out of the portal. It's been a hot button topic here because they moved away from that the last few years. What's your kind of philosophy on the punting game in particular?
Well, speaking of the rule changes, we'll see. We're still kind of figuring that part out. The Australian punter thing, they've kind of taken over different styles in different places. I mean, even in the NFL, they have a bunch of guys doing really well. There's a number of factors involved, but they have a slightly different skill set than American punters in terms of the way they grew up, on the move, eyes downfield, and avoiding and getting the ball into unique positions. I think that's something that is really appealing to me. Typically, I don't know how technical we want to get, but typically an Australian punter, when they're really talented, they have a fast ability to catch the ball, and then when they want to pull the trigger and get the ball out, they can. So it allows you to do some other things because they aren't in a long engaged 2 to 3 step punt motion. So that's something we try and take advantage of when we can. But at the end of the day, they're still punters. I mean, they still punt good spiral. They'll do the other things too, and it's our job to figure out what's best for our group and kind of, But I know what you're saying.
What were just Jacob Callaway first impressions of him, and just how good can you think he can be moving forward?
Oh, I think he's got all the talent in the world. I mean, he really does. I mean, you watch him out there today. He had big leg, great height, great operation time. Obviously everyone's got room to get better, but like you said, the question, how good can he be? He can be really good. He can be really good.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there's anybody on the roster who has extensive return experience at the college level. How do you feel about your options?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that right now, to be honest with you, we've had that conversation a number of times, and that's another hard thing. So when you think about football, one thing you really don't do in practice is the quarterback doesn't get hit and the returners don't get hit. And maybe here and there you'll find some spots to put them in some pressure, and we have some drills that we do that with. But it's different to be out there doing this. And so how do you make practice game-like? And sometimes, I mean, it's even little things like right now we're practicing in the indoor. Well, returners don't get the same reps that they do if we're going to practice out there or even outside. So we have to find and steal reps, and at the end of the day, we have enough really good athletes and good football players. We've got to develop them, and it's not that they can't do it. They haven't maybe had extensive experience, like you said, but I think we'll have some good options.
Speaking of those options, what are some of the characteristics in terms of kickoff and punt that might be different that you're looking for?
Yeah, I don't know how technical or specific you want to get, but typically the way a punt returner works is he's going to be stationary when he catches the ball. You know, we talk about having small steps late, which means as my eyes are up and I have big step, my eyes move. So I want to have small steps late, but I'm kind of in a square position, catching it and then trying to make the first man miss. Kickoff return, we want to catch it rocking into the catch, moving forward. I'm stealing yards as I catch that football. So those are different procedures to catch the ball. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say you don't have great returners on both that do the opposite, but typically that's what you're looking for. If a punt returner can make the first guy miss and start running somewhere, things happen. Kickoff returners, the game has changed slightly in the kickoff return world for a number of reasons. The rules are changing, kind of like we've talked about. Typically, we talk about running through the smoke. Like if you can create a void in the defense, it's going to open and close really fast. So those guys that can see it, time it, and then get through that window quickly and trust it's going to be there, because sometimes there's some big hits on the other side for the defense and for the return team. So that's kind of what we're looking at.
How does the receivers part of your job work? We've heard they're moving guys around a lot during spring with this no depth chart thing. So as the inside receivers coach, do you still have a group of guys you're working with, or is it kind of just like a group?
It's more of a group. I mean, Coach Price is the guy running that room most of the time. We pass off, we trade off. He worked with Coach Stein, with Will back at UTSA, so they have some carryover. I obviously worked with him last year, so there's some carryover. So what we're really trying to do is divide and conquer. We have two fields a lot of times. One group's down here, the other group's down here. And so we split it up and I think I said it out there. I was mic'd up today. I said, I think I said something like, you get in where you fit in. But I've coached receivers for a long time in the past, and I've coached different positions, and this is just another way to help impact the team, and that's something that I get in where I fit in, I guess.
Mark Stoops was always pretty upfront about on punt return, like the main goal was to just have possession at the end of it. They were not very aggressive in terms of returning. How is your philosophy there in terms of like making that?
I would say, to be as bluntly honest as I can be, it depends on what else is happening in the game. There are situations where, like, hey man, we need a spark. What are we going to do? Maybe we got a guy that is not the ultimate fair catch, but he can make something happen. I can't tell you exactly, but I agree. The number one goal is to have the football at the end of each play by both teams, right? If you have the ball, you can score and win. If you don't have the ball, you can't. But I'm not going to say that you sacrifice the ability to impact the – no. There's times where you have to situationally scale it back or make sure you do have the ball, but there's other times where you need to be aggressive and you need to go try and block the punt, or you need to try and return the punt, or you need to try and bluff something, or but that's – I think situationally, that's when you really can, when the guys know why they're doing what they're doing and they can understand situations, that's when you really kind of take that next step.
Have they made any changes with the fair catch situation on kickoffs, and how have you seen that kind of affect how coaches think in the handful of years that's been in play?
Yes, they have actually added a new fair catch rule for punts now, where you can kick a field goal essentially after a fair catch on a punt, which the NFL rule has been in high school. It wasn't college forever, but now it is. But your question was more about the kickoff return team fair catching balls. So if you go back, we used to have, you call a return a directional return. Let's say you're going to call a directional to the right return and the ball's kicked to the left. You had to spend time and effort and get the whole team, okay, if the ball's kicked outside this landmark, we're going to make a signal and we're going to flip the return on the run. And you don't have an option to not do that, because if you don't have a plan, they're going to come tackle you. Well, now most teams, if the ball's kicked the other direction, they just fair catch it. And so it really just kind of, okay, we're not worried about spending time doing those things. For me personally, if you go back and kind of watch the history of how we've played on kickoff at places that I've been, we've typically been put the ball in the left hash and kick it to the left corner. And we've had a lot of success with doing that. The key there is the big hits come when we can pin them in the corner and we can run down there and tackle them. The risk you run is if they, have a field return called and you leak the ball a little bit to the field, they got a little momentum, and then, that ball rolls to the field a little bit and you have to adjust. But in the past, your overall, you'd have more goods than bads, and so you kind of get to go pin them a bunch, and you really change. What I found my last few years at some other places, if you kicked a really good ball, they say, no, we're not going to do it. And then they just kind of wait for that little leaky kick, and then they call field returns against you. And that's something that we have to adjust and maybe kick a few more touchbacks or, just kind of play that game a little bit differently. But it's definitely a different game than it used to be.
Anybody else?
I got one. Spent some time at Oregon, Nike, all the money
Yeah.
and stuff with the uniforms, to Ohio State, some recent national championships. I just wanted to get your thoughts on, being in the SEC, and kind of how things are here at UK, whether it be facility-wise, equipment, the things you guys have access to technology-wise, compared to maybe these other bigger brands.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great question. I mean, I grew up in Atlanta. My parents lived. They both went to Auburn. They grew up. My dad went to law school. Then they moved to Atlanta. And when they did that, the SEC championship game moved from Legion Field to the Georgia Dome when they built that. And so my dad he bought tickets to the first SEC championship game in the Georgia Dome, right? And I don't think he realized this at the time, but he bought a PSL or something. So like every year they kept sending him, here we go. And so we went to the SEC championship game every single year when I was growing up, and the Peach Bowl actually, both those two. So I grew up an SEC fan. I grew up in this the old SEC, I guess, different than the current one. And so it's great to get back into this realm, into this world. Then obviously, my bio, you can look. I was at some places that have different Big Ten. I guess Oregon was in the Pac-12, but when I was there, it was the Big Ten, and it's all similar. It really is. I mean, at the end of the day, we have a great facility here. We have great resources. We have access to. Look at this. The stadium's right there. It's a beautiful stadium, and we have great indoor. Everything you need is right here. How do you take advantage of it is the people, right? And I think that's a key. Is how do you make sure that we, use our resources to our best. You can see here I'm wearing. I think I look good in blue, right? I played at one of my college head coaches is actually here right now. This was like PC blue, so it's funny. Your closet you kind of rotate through, and I was at a place where no blue was allowed for a long time. So my closet, there was no blue left, and now my parents laugh. They get to kind of pull out some of the old blue stuff that they had when I was in college, and I think it's. I think, like I said, I'm excited. We have everything we need here to go be successful. We just got to, use it the right way.
How did you develop into being special teams, and who did you learn from? Who did you lean on?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I played quarterback in college. Actually, the guy in there was one of the main guys that told me, hey, you need a coach when you're done with this. That's what he said. I kind of gave him cool. Yeah, okay, And then I stayed after my senior year, and I was not on staff, but I spent time with at Presbyterian that spring just as a coach, if you will, just kind of see what it's like. And I got the bug. My first job, I was a high school coach back in Atlanta, where I played, Decatur High School. My second job, I was a quarterbacks coach for a Division III school in Columbus, Ohio, Capital University. And Urban Meyer gets the job at Ohio State, and I kind of send emails, I knock on the door, I did whatever. Yeah, I'll do anything. I'll work for free. You tell me what, I'll do it. I'm here. I'm whatever you need. Yeah, we need a special teams intern. I said, I'm your guy. I'm your guy. What? I had coached quarterbacks. And so I get there, and really, I got very lucky that he was a guy that I worked for. Wasn't always easy, but he taught me what he knew. He taught me, there's a lot of things still, even to this day, when I run meetings, there's times where I'm like, how would he do it? How would he do it? Because that's really where I learned it from. And then he gave me kind of a blessing. I went, I did it on my own for a few years, and then he called me back, and that's when I went back to Ohio State, was in 2018 to work for him again. And then it transitioned. He left. I worked for Ryan Day, the whole thing. But that was really, it started with him, with Urban Meyer, his culture, his mindset, and schematically a lot of the things, you tweak and you adjust. But that's really where it started for me.
Urban Meyer was known as a special teams specialist. Was there a point where he realized maybe you didn't have quite the depth of knowledge that you represented?
Every day. Every day. I think my first day, when you get a job from a Division III school and you go to a big-time program, they've got, the video systems and the software and, hey, make me a cut-up of this. And I said, make you a cut-up. Okay. I have no idea what that means. So what am I doing? I'm Googling, I'm looking it up on YouTube, I'm asking everybody in the building. But the key, I think that there were a couple times when he was frustrated with me early, but back then I tried not to make the same mistake twice. And that's kind of the way I looked at it. Showed up every day. I got home every night. I wasn't always happy. Wasn't always like I was cheering to go back to work every day. But you know what? You wake up, you go every day, and eventually, he started trusting me. And then, he let me do more. He let me do more. Yeah, that first spring, I think who is this guy? Who is this guy? But he also. But you're right. He ran the punt and the kickoff team back then. But he also he set the tone. He set the tone for the program. A lot of it was through special teams, and I still have great relationships with a lot of those great players from that place. That because I was their guy. I was the wide receivers GA and special teams. I started as an intern, and then I got promoted to graduate assistant the next year. But I was working with the wide receivers and special teams. But I mean, I'm the guy having all kind of come here. Let's talk about this. Come here. I'm texting like that. And so and they understood back then the impact you can have in a game. And I think that when you're just trying to win games, no one really cares who, what, or why. It's if you can help, let's do it. And so I think that was a great learning experience for me there.
Everybody good?
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.